Okay, everyone, welcome to our third podcast. My name is Josh and I'm based in Wrexham. And today with me, I've got Rob, who's based in Liverpool. And we're going to be chatting to Joey, who's currently based in Worcester, which is where Rob used to live.
Yes, this is true. And that was for 22 years. And so I've got a little bit of knowledge about Worcester. And Joey, it's great to have you with us, but we just need to find out if you know much about this city. I mean, would you say you know much about Worcester, Joey?
I would say that I know my house intimately.
Right. Okay. Well, this could go very badly for you then. So we're going to start with this. Joey, do you like Worcester sauce flavoured crisps?
I do actually, yeah.
You sound a little bit surprised then. Why is that?
Because it sounds horrible.
Does it?
Yeah.
Is that because, you got a problem with Worcester that it sounds like a not very nice place, or?
Well, it's what you flavour, stew with. You don't want stew.
Yeah, do you know what? I'll give you that one. All right, then. So I want to ask you this, and don't worry, you're thinking, is this going to be loads of rubbish questions? No, it's just 3 rubbish questions today. The second one is it true that Worcester sauce comes from Worcester?
You know what? I know that it is because I walk past Lee and Perrins every day to work.
Oh, there we go.
At the grand old age of 33, for the first time I realised why it's called Worcester sauce.
There you go. Absolutely. And you're giving away your age as well. All right, then. Third question, and I'm going to be impressed if you get this one right. Might give you a pack of Worcester sauce crisps. How many places in the world are called Worcester?
1?
1. Now, do you know, I think that's probably the best answer. It's absolutely the wrong answer. But I think it's the best answer because clearly what you're thinking is from what you've seen in the city, you just think this is such a unique, wonderful place where Rob grew up that there could only be 1 place. Would that be right?
I love that that's what you assumed the reason I thought that.
Yeah, well, I think we should just go with it.
Yeah.
Actually, there are 10 places. Can you believe this? I know that our 3 listeners are just amazed to hear this fact. There are 10 places in the world. Would you like to know where these other places called Worcester are in the world, Joey?
I would love to, more than I can express.
I'm glad you said that, because if you said no, then we'd have just moved on. So 6 in the USA. Okay, how about that? There are 2 in South Africa. There's 1 in England that you know of, and there's 1 in Jamaica.
Nice.
So we won't ask you which one you prefer to live in, because I think we could probably, guess. But there you go. You're stuck in Worcester, England at the minute. Well, I shouldn't say you're stuck anyway. Anyway, back to Josh.
So Joey, since we've got Rob, who is currently sitting where I used to live, and then you're where Rob used to live, is there any chance you're from Wrexham?
Close, not quite. The other side of the border, I'm afraid.
So where about?
Frodsham, Cheshire.
Oh, right, so not that far.
No, not at all.
No, so we'll skip through This Is Your Life. What did you do after you left school?
So I went to university. I studied electronic engineering. Struggled to get a job. Was a drum teacher for a little bit. Then kind of a sales assistant, and eventually became an engineer in a hospital.
I heard that you went halfway across the world to live. Is this true? And if so, where was it and when?
So I used to live in Papua New Guinea, which is just above Australia, half of an island that looks like a dinosaur. And that was in 2016, I think. I'll say that because you don't know, so you don't know more.
It's not that long ago then. Why did you do that?
So I joined a charity called MAF, Mission Aviation Fellowship. And I worked out there to help the isolated communities. So there's lots of people who are very cut off from kind of help. So they have no power or electricity. There's no kind of road network out there and no power or anything like that. So I'd go out into those communities and help build radios so that they could call for help if they needed to, and help like solar panel so they've got electricity, and also provide fixed medical equipment too.
Oh, right, okay. So what was that like? I imagine it's quite different than Frodsham.
Yeah, it was a lot warmer, that's for sure. No, it was completely different. It was an incredible experience for sure, very beautiful, but also just really amazing people. A real privilege to be around people that see the world in a very different way to you. I learned an awful lot from them.
Nice.
So, Joey, we know each other a little bit, and so I know a little bit about your story. And I know it didn't quite go to plan, did it? Going to Papua New Guinea. Why was that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, after about 9 months of being out there, I got quite sick, quite ill.
And so can you give us an idea of what that looked like and how that kind of manifested itself?
Yeah, sure. So it was very strange, really. So there's an expression that we might say in England that somebody walked over our grave, like a feeling of a shiver down your spine. And so to begin with, I would just get this kind of shiver down my spine maybe 4 times a day, and a little kind of jerk of the arms, which seemed a bit odd, but didn't seem like anything particularly to be worried about. Then over a course of a week, it got worse and worse until it happened more and more often. And so we realized that there was something a little bit wrong and not quite right with me.
Wow. So that progressively got worse then. And was that, was pain attached to that, or was it kind of just not being in control of your body, or what? How would you describe it?
Yeah, to begin with, there was no real pain. The greatest sense was very hard to explain, but like a very strong tension inside, and particularly around my spine. Yeah, just like everything was compressed inside of me, and then out of that there would be this kind of uncontrolled movement to my arms and my legs. And to begin with, it wasn't too often, and it wasn't too overwhelming. But towards the end, it became completely debilitating, really.
So you couldn't actually do the job that you'd gone out there to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we tried to carry on doing it for a while, for maybe the first couple of weeks, and then I nearly threw myself off a ladder, and we thought we probably should stop that.
Wow. Yeah. And what was that like, being so far from home and being so unwell? Because I mean, how many miles is Papua New Guinea from England or Frodsham?
Roughly 10,000. And it was difficult, but probably not for the reasons you might think. At that point, we didn't really know what the illness was. And when you live in Papua New Guinea, you kind of get used to strange things happening that you're not sort of familiar with. And so it just seemed like another kind of unknown, something to go through. But it was more being away from my family, who I knew were very worried about me, and not being able to kind of make sure that they were okay and that they knew that I was okay, because I knew they were very worried for me, obviously.
Yeah. So I know that you came home, but how long had you been unwell in Papua New Guinea before you came home? And then once you came home, did the doctor sort you out? What happened next?
Yeah, so it was probably about 6 weeks before I actually came home. The first couple, we just hoped that it would go away. Then we sought clinical help in Papua New Guinea, but they sort of said we needed a neurologist. There were no neurologists in PNG, so we planned for me to go over to Australia, but unfortunately that wasn't possible for a technical reason. And so in the end, it happened to be Christmas time, and there was a member of staff going home to England. And so she said, "Oh, I'll look after you on the plane, and we'll get you back to England for Christmas." So I came back to England and went to A&E. I ended up spending Christmas in a ward. Was there for a week. They did pretty much every test they could think of. So lumbar puncture, brain scan, found out that there was nothing there at all, really. They sort of had lots of blood tests, kind of released me and said they couldn't really put a definite prognosis on it, and continued doing different sort of research into it, and went to tropical medicine. But every time somebody thought they knew what it might be, it kind of turned out that it wasn't really that at all.
So what was that like, Joey, then, having a condition that they couldn't name?
Yeah, it was a challenge. At first, I suppose it was almost kind of flattering. It makes you feel a bit special, but that wears off very quickly. I think it's challenging in a number of ways. The first is that you almost start to wonder if you're kind of somehow making it up because no one can find out what's wrong with you. And you kind of get in your head a little bit like, why is my body doing this? There's no reason it should be behaving in this way. It's also very frustrating because you don't know what you can do to get better. Like, no one can give you any kind of advice, really. And it's quite lonely because you just kind of have no real hope. Like, the doctors are doing their best, they can't kind of give you a direction, and they can't tell you how long you're going to be like that for. They can't tell you if it's going to be permanent, or if it would just carry on getting worse, because it did get worse and worse, and we kind of watched that happen. And so yeah, obviously I had hope in God, but I think if it wasn't for my Christian faith, it would have been a very, very dark time, because there wasn't really any other hope.
Yeah, so you said you've got a Christian faith then, and that's something you lent on. But I wonder, did you question God during while you were struggling with that, or maybe even blame him at all for that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I blamed him at all, in that I never really felt like I had any, if you like, right to tell God what he should do. But I would definitely say that I questioned him. Actually, I would really encourage anybody to question God. We sometimes think it's a bad thing to ask questions of God, but I think that God loves you. I think the only way you can really get to know who God is by talking to him, by asking him, by getting to know him more. And I think you do that by asking the difficult questions and by being honest. And I asked a lot of questions, you know. I felt convinced in my heart that God had called me to Papua New Guinea, and I still do. And so it's very hard to accept that then he would allow something to happen to me that made me be taken away from that. So that's something that I asked an awful lot. You know, I asked, when I'm going to get better, why don't you just make me better now? Because I believe that you can. All those sorts of things. And often, you know, the answer was just, you don't need to know that yet, or just wait and you'll find out. But also there were, I believe that, you know, he gave me some answers too that really helped me understand what was going on and gave me comfort.
So what did you do? What happened next?
So it carried on for quite a while. It lasted about 18 months in total. Towards the end of my illness, I was pretty much confined to my room. I couldn't really hold a conversation with anybody. I found it very difficult to walk because my legs were moving so much, so I had to use a stick. It was really difficult. And obviously, you know, been praying a lot to God that he would sort of help the situation out and fix it whatever way he wanted to. But you know, my prayers probably did get more and more desperate and sort of you know, please soon, because I don't know how long I can cope with this kind of thing. And then we got to a point, and friends of ours, so my girlfriend at the time was in college down south near Hertfordshire, and a lot of our friends were down there too. And a friend of ours was really desperate for me to come down and visit the college there so they could pray for us, pray for me. And also there was a church nearby that had a reputation of the pastor there had prayed for lots of people who got better. And so he really wanted me to go to that church. So I went down to visit Becky, which was really difficult for me. And it was a real challenge. I ended up spending about a week just in my bed because of the journey was too much for me. And then we came to the Sunday where we were going to go to this church. And I mean, they were a lovely couple that prayed for me, but they didn't really have any understanding of my condition and kind of the things that made me worse. And so loud noises and those sorts of things were the worst things that you could do for me. And they prayed very fervently, but very loudly too. And that made me really a lot worse. And so at the end of that, it was all kind of a bit of a downer, really, because we sort of hoped that I was going to get better then. And we wanted God to do what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it. But there was also that little bit that really just wanted to believe that was going to happen then. And it didn't.
Okay, so things didn't really go to plan with that then, did you try again and pray for healing, or did you just kind of give up?
Yes, it was actually that evening that that me and Becky, my girlfriend at the time, were together, and we were just kind of really low. It was a really difficult point for us, and it kind of just really felt that sense of disappointment. And we were just talking about kind of how much it hurt to almost be let down in that way, even though it was us that put those expectations on kind of the whole thing. And then we got talking more, and Becky spoke about how hard it was to pray for somebody to get better when all that seemed to happen was that they got worse, and how she felt like actually her prayers weren't very good. Like, she knew that it isn't about how eloquent you are or, you know, good prayers, but at the same time she felt like actually her prayers weren't deep down. And she felt like it was a lot easier to get other people to pray for me. But despite all of that, she felt in her heart that God was saying that she needed to pray for me. Yeah.
So did she?
Yeah, absolutely. So she said to me, you know, can I pray for you? And I was like, sure, you can do whatever you want, really. And so I was in my room and I was like, well, I'm going to lie down because I'm absolutely exhausted. And so she started praying for me, and as she did, my whole body started shaking violently, which is really normal with my condition. So the condition was sort of uncontrolled movements. And she said, well, I feel like I need to pray for every part of your body. And so she really did. Like, she put her hands on my head and she started praying for my head, and then for my neck, and then my shoulders. And she moved down to my upper arm. And as she was doing that, towards the end of that, I mean, she was praying for like 5 minutes for each part of my body. But towards the end, I realized that my upper arm started shaking a little bit less, which was a bit weird. And by the time she'd finished, it wasn't shaking anymore. But the rest of me still was. And she carried on for my forearms and my wrists and my hands and my fingers and my chest. And I realized that as she did that, each part of my body stopped shaking. And so my whole upper body now was still, but my legs were flailing around like crazy. And I was just kind of watching this because none of it was, I wasn't controlling any of it anyway. And it was just a really weird thing to see. And so I turned to Becky and said, I think something's happening. I said, yeah, but we should probably carry on going. So she prayed for my legs, my upper legs, my lower legs, my feet, and my whole body was still, except for my toes. And my toes were wiggling around like crazy. And she thought, I'll leave them as a practical joke, because that'd be funny, wouldn't it? She didn't really. She prayed for my toes, and then my toes stopped as well. And then for the first time in 18 months, my whole body was just completely still, like just nothing.
It's just an amazing story, Joe. I mean, even as you tell it now, is it hard to believe? Because there'll be some who are listening thinking, you know, that's mad. Like, things like this perhaps don't happen. Like, what would you say to someone that's perhaps hearing that going, nah, that can't be real?
What I'd say is I totally understand. I was there and I found it hard to believe while I was watching it, you know, because I wasn't able to control any of it. It is unbelievable. And when you hear the stories of that, you think, like, I don't know, you imagine that there'd be something about it that you know it's going to happen, like there'll be fanfare or something. But even as I was watching it, I still wasn't entirely sure what was going on, you know. And I still felt kind of quite tense inside, like that side of the illness. And at the end of all that, we sort of said to each other, well, what does this mean? Is this a healing? Like, have you been healed, or is this temporary, or like what happens now? Like, we just had no idea what was going on. And actually, we sort of decided that we'd just carry on praying for the next 2 days, and we'd see what happened. And we'd invite all our friends to get involved as well. And it was actually only after those 2 days that we were like, yeah, this is it. That's what's happened.
I was just thinking about us being on this podcast earlier, Joey, and I was thinking, do you know, I don't think I've actually seen you since your healing. And the significance of that is that means that the last time I saw you, other than on this screen now, was when I came to visit you. And I don't know if you remember this, that you were we were sat in your kitchen and you asked me if I wanted a drink. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know if I should say yes or no, because that means you've then got to make me a drink. And then I thought, because I think you maybe even offered me like a hot drink. And I was thinking, oh, you know, should he be like holding like a cup of tea? I remember you making that cup of tea. And I just can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you. Just to make yourself a drink, that was like a big task, wasn't it? And I'm sure after I'd left, you probably had to like lie down or whatever. And it's just incredible to now kind of see you on this screen and just see that, you know, you seem fully in control of your body, you know, which is quite different to the last time I saw you. So had you ever seen anything like this before? Had you ever witnessed a miracle? Did you believe in miracles before this?
I'd never witnessed anything, I would say. So I've got friends who've been healed, and certainly know of lots of people who have felt those kind of experiences, but I've never witnessed anything, if you like. Like, I know there's people who were ill and then they weren't ill. But I think those times of healing are often very intimate, aren't they? And actually not normally quite so public.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely believed that God. I always actually believed that God could heal me, and I always believed that I would get better, but I didn't always know what that meant.
Yeah.
So I always thought that I'd get to a point where God could use me. Because at the point where I was kind of stuck in my room, I realized that actually, that I wasn't able to really do anything. But I didn't know, like, I could still be quite seriously ill and still be usable, and it might have been that was how God wanted me to be for the rest of my life. So to be returned completely to how I was beforehand was genuinely beyond anything I imagined. Even though I believed that he could, I didn't think he would. And maybe I just didn't want to believe because I didn't want to be let down. I don't know. But yeah.
And looking back now, can you make sense of it in any way? Like as people are perhaps hearing this, didn't know anything about this, it's logical to go, well, what is that about? You were called, you believe God had said, go to Papua New Guinea, do my work there. You get ill, you have to come home, you're there not well for 18 months, and then he seems to heal you. I mean, does that make sense to you? Can you see any rhyme or reason for it?
Yeah, I think it's very human to search for answers, isn't it? Like, why is a very human question to ask. Unfortunately, I don't think God gets tired of hearing it. But I would say yes and no to that. I can see a lot that happened during that time. I can certainly say that even though if I was given a chance, I would have left that situation as quickly as I could, that I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for that. And that God used that time to shape me and grow me and build me, for sure. And I was so privileged that literally hundreds of people around the world were praying for me, that they were joining in my experience, that I wasn't alone, and that actually through their prayers I was healed. And so through my healing, they shared in that healing, that they were part of that God helped grow them too, that actually God revealed who he was to lots of people. Then that very personal thing with Becky, Becky saw how her prayers really did matter, that they were powerful, that it wasn't about you, how eloquent you were. There were lots of little pieces, and what I can say is that God was glorified. Now, whether or not that's why, I can't tell you, but I can tell you that's good enough reason for me.
Can I just ask, was it like a total healing? So have you suffered at all with your condition since then, or was it just completely gone?
Yeah, so nothing. It's kind of mind blowing actually, to be honest with you. So I have a very high pitched hiccup that I get like once a week. But other than that, I'd say I was fine. And I don't know what that is because I didn't have that when I was ill either. But seems to be like a byproduct of healing, maybe, just to remind me what God's done for me, I think.
That's surely just because you drink too much Lucozade or something, Joey. No?
That's my excuse anyway.
Does it ever happen when in inopportune moments?
Yeah.
I really want to hear it now. I hope it happens.
Yeah, I don't know why it hasn't, but maybe at the end.
that would be quite cool to get on a podcast, wouldn't it? A high pitched hiccup, but yeah. I think just the last question from me, Joey, is what would you say to somebody who maybe is hearing this and either they themselves have got something going on in their body that they need healing for, or maybe in their mind in terms of their mental health, or perhaps they know of somebody who is in need. It might be something completely different to what you had going on. It might be something that the doctors can name, but they need healing, and either they're scared to pray or they are praying and nothing's happening. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, man, it's so hard. Like, I definitely have my sympathy. No, I'd say first and foremost that God knows. God knows exactly what you or your friend is going through. And he feels your pain, and he doesn't want you to suffer. Like, that's not the reason that this is happening. But also I'd say hang on, but also that sometimes when you're ill or when you feel like you're in a really bad place, it's not even necessarily illness. You can feel very powerless, and you can feel like life is just passing you by. But in the economy of God, nothing is wasted. Like, even in those times, even in our darkest places, even at our weakest point, that God is still working in us and around us. and doing so much more than you could ever imagine. And to just draw hope on that, and to know that he absolutely can heal. He is a powerful God, and if he does choose to heal you, he'll do it in his way, in his time, and to his glory. And if he doesn't, it's because he's got another plan. He'll still be glorified, and he will do things in a more incredible way than you could imagine. Like, actually, his plans surpass anything we could imagine. They're not always exactly what we'd like them to be. They certainly sometimes take a lot longer than we'd like them to. But he is in control, and if you trust him, he'll bring you through.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks, Joey. That story is just amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just to you guys listening at home, I really hope that Joey's story has resonated with you. I hope that it's helped you think about this God who's got the amazing power to heal. You know, we believe that he's a God of love. I'm sure Rob and Joey would say the same. And whether someone gets healed or not, that's not an indication of how much God loves them. God loves you no matter what, and a massive amount. Sometimes, as Joey said, we just don't know why some prayers are answered and some aren't. But if you'd like to chat, if you'd like another perspective, or just to unpack some of the stuff we chatted about in this podcast, get in touch with us or chat to a Christian, maybe a youth worker or someone else. Okay, see you next time.